Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Liberty, the missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her, they've been yelling for her.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Where are your kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Chad, where are Lori's kids?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back for another ATS live stream. Hello to everyone in chat. Hello, Crime Sleuthin, K Braze, Chase, B Crumbs, Adrian. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Hi, Nadie. Everyone who's joined us, we have a lot to go through. Hi, Pointer Lover. Everyone else, Shay Benet. And thank you so much, Delaney, for being a member for 19 months. That's definitely one of my longest members. So I really appreciate your support over this long time. I guess that we've known each other even before that through CDT's channel. So thank you so much for your support for me. And hello, Alex and Tony. All right, so I'm getting the thumbs up for sound. So I was told when I jumped into this case when Richard Allen was arrested, although I did know about the case, I didn't really study it until Richard Allen's arrest. And thank you, Pointer Lover, 15-month member. Thank you so much. And same for you. I just appreciate your support and just our friendship that we've made over this time. So people said that they really appreciated my fresh perspective on the case when I jumped in, because a lot of people have been following this obviously since it broke in 2017. And a lot of web sleuths and podcasters and channels have gone over this case over and over. And they were pleased with my outlook on the case when I jumped in last year. Now that things have escalated with the documents that the defense put out, I am pretty much writing off everything that I thought I knew in this case, and I'm starting over from scratch. And I can't really get out of this rabbit hole until I get more of a grasp or understanding on what is going on in this case, because I just feel like what I took as, oh, they're keeping it close to the vest and they don't want to show all their cards and yada, yada. I feel like now has just turned into me being confused. And I think that a lot of people are feeling that way, especially with this Odinism stuff going around and just the documents in general, everything from the guards, the correctional officers wearing patches in prison that support this cult or whatever you want to call it, religion. It's very strange. And I just feel like it's at the point where I have to start over. So that's what we're going to start to do. We're just going to start from the beginning. We're going to rewind time and go back into 2017. And we're going to start looking at this case as if everything we've been told about Richard Allen and Keegan Kline and everyone else, we're just going to pretend that we're hearing it for the first time. Like when I play some news clips, we're going to pretend we're hearing the news clips for the first time and just taking a fresh look at everything. So if you're here because you want me to keep perpetuating the feelings of Richard Allen is guilty, I'm at the point where I feel like, how do we know that he didn't have help? They've hinted at others being involved before. So, he very well may be guilty, but I just feel like it might be deeper than we think or are being told. So thank you, Pointer Lover. I really appreciate the super chat. You always do an amazing job. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So I think what I want to do is start off with some of the clips that I've put together. And these clips are me reading a portion of the Keegan Kline transcript, specifically the part where he's kind of asked about the girls and his connection to them through the Anthony Shots catfishing account. And there's also a clip in here from the district attorney when Richard Allen was arrested. And there is a little bit of hearsay that was going around as soon as Richard Allen was arrested that I want to kind of re-go over and just revisit. And as long as we're made clear, you can take it for what you will. It could be true, it might not be, but I think going back over some things is important and interesting. So that's what we're going to do. So let's just get into it. We'll start off with the clips that I've put together, and then we will transition to different timelines, screens, and first reporting on this case, or the earliest reports that I could find a couple years ago on Court TV. Okay, so this was a little bit of hearsay that was going around right when Richard was arrested. It says, I know you'll probably take this with a grain of salt, but I swear my local family is super involved in Delphi, Carroll County community. They dug up the yard last night, per the neighbor. Neighbor had reported that Richard stole something and the cops came to look for it and apparently found evidence for the double homicide. They arrested him at work at CVS this morning. They've known about him for a while. Keegan Klein ratted him out as a second user of the Anthony Shots account. A family friend, a local lawyer, told us that Richard voluntarily checked himself into the local mental hospital days after the murder for a 30-day treatment. So again, this is hearsay. Just looking back at some of our notes, we are going to revisit even stuff that was kind of going around in the Facebook groups or with locals and stuff like that. So interesting that people were thinking that Keegan Klein was tied to Richard Allen. We have yet to see any connection between Richard Allen and any of these other people, even the people that were mentioned in the defense documents. You know, we don't have any connection from Richard Allen to them, or even, you know, Keegan Klein to the names that were mentioned in the memorandum. So just something to keep in mind.
I honestly just don't know.
This was a neighbor who's known the family for a while.
How his parents could not, I don't know how they could not know.
And it's interesting that she decides to say the parents. Like, how did his parents not know? A lot of people have said that about Kathy, his wife. And, you know, when we see the image of Bridge Guy or any of these sketches or hear the voice of guys down the hill, you know, we've always wondered, how did Kathy and, you know, other people have been wondering, even his parents, how did nobody link the stuff together to being Richard Allen? Is it because it's not Richard Allen? Like, I can't help but wonder, like, again, when I looked at this case, when Richard Allen was arrested, I was under the confidence, even though it had taken years and years to make the arrest, I had figured, and hello, Roxanne and MK, thanks for being here, guys. I had made the assumption that they made a little mistake when they looked over Richard Allen's tip, but they got the guy and he looks close enough to one of the sketches and he looks close enough to the walk and the Bridge Guy, But now, again, with new perspective and just questioning things that I think I know, I can't help but think like, okay, so did Kathy and Richard Allen's parents not know ahead of time because they don't feel that that's their son or husband? I don't know.
Some point to have an opportunity in court to explain the evidence, or for that not to be tarnished or tainted or anything like that. Again, he's presumed innocent, and so it was important for me in this case to do that. Hold on just a minute. We're not going to comment on that right now.
So again, this is after Richard Allen's been arrested. This is some of the first press conferences and interviews that they did after the arrest. And last live stream, we went over Doug Carter's interview, and he pretty much said the same thing. He didn't want to comment on Keegan Kline, and he pretty much denied that the charges that were dropped for Keegan Kline had anything to do with a search that they had just done in a river nearby. But here is interesting too, because I swear this prosecutor says it's part of the investigation. So take it for what you will. Maybe he just means because he was using the Anthony Shots account or had access to it or what. But even though he says we're not going to comment on it, he kind of follows it up with it's part of the investigation. So it just makes me wonder, what is the connection? Is there a connection, or is it just a red herring? Look over here, and it's just coincidence that Anthony Shots was messaging with them.
Part of the investigation.
Material collected from.
Hold on just a minute. We're not going to comment on that right now. As part of the investigation.
Material collected from multiple devices owned by Kline and seized by police. So again, this is part of the transcript for the investigation into Keegan Kline's phone records and everything digital. And it also has a bit of the conversation between the cop and Keegan. So I'll be reading that part right here. Shay Benet says Keegan Kline is super sus. Other people, hi Jordan, good to see you. Nothing has ever sat right with me with this case, Bex said. I know. That's how I feel too. And it's like that's why we're re-going over stuff. I got my notebook here. So anything you guys want to bring to chat, I will pull up as well. And we can, Reese says there has to be some connection. Well, let's hear what Keegan Kline has to say in this little part here in this interview with the cops. I feel like Pointer Lover, that is what everybody has been saying too. In my comment section and my live chats covering this case recently. Like it wasn't so much that this comment when Richard Allen was arrested, or even when he was trying to file stuff when he was behind bars, when they were mentioning the confession and all that. It seems like now all of a sudden with the defense documents that came out, people are just like, okay, I think we need a fresh look at this. Because it is a huge mess and we do not want it to turn into a miscarriage of justice. The Keegan stuff is too weird. I think he's done interviews from jail, if I'm not mistaken. That's the thing. We're going to look at so many different avenues in all this because it's a rabbit hole that just keeps going. They need an outside agency to take over, in my opinion. And it seemed like when FBI was involved, and I know that this is the belief of a lot of people who've covered this, there is a feeling that there was a lot of difference in opinions between all the different agencies and perhaps miscommunication. Because if they legitimately missed the tip about Richard Allen until years later, because the conservation officer had it in his notes and it was just skimmed over, or whatever the excuse is. Like that to me is an example of possible miscommunications between all the different agencies that were involved. And everyone was just seems very confused or blindsided by this. So Thank you, Shay Benet, for gifting the memberships. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you being a moderator and a good friend. And welcome to all the members. February 2020 sparked one of the largest child P investigations in Indiana state history. In August 2020, police conducted one of many videotaped interviews. Investigators accused him of grooming multiple underage girls, some as young as 7, using fake social media accounts and usernames across platforms including Snapchat, KIK, Instagram, and MeetMe. Chillingly, while the girls believed they were conversing with teenage girl Emily Ann or hunky actor and model Anthony Schatz, they were in fact exchanging intimate details and pictures with Keegan Kline, who cops alleged not only gratified himself, but acted as a conduit for other pedos to interact with the girls whom he groomed. By the time Kline sat down for August 2020 interview, he had already flunked a polygraph test during which he had been asked if he knew who the Delphi killer was. The transcript. So, just to note something noteworthy, again, we know that polygraphs aren't admissible into court, but it is a tool for the investigation. So allegedly, and I know that there'll be people who can fact check me or, and I don't mind it, especially if you guys have been on this case longer than I have or deeper than I have. But if he in fact was asked, who the Delphi killer is, and he said no, and he failed that question on the polygraph, I think that that is noteworthy. So I'm just going to jot it down and keep that in mind for the polygraph for Keegan Kline. He failed when they asked him if he knew who the killer was. So, based on that, how can we write him off completely? You know what I mean? But then what is his connection to Richard Allen? Show a line of questions to Kline. Key to their line of questions was the certainty that at least one other user had access to Kline's fake accounts and therefore a direct line to the girls. Kline estimated he had communicated with more than 200, one of them being Libby. Kline had lied to detectives in early interviews, claiming to have only messaged Libby on one occasion for a couple of hours, and stating that he had never exchanged photos with her. In August, officers confronted him with the fact that they knew that Anthony Schatz had messaged with Libby across several weeks, offering to buy her gifts and sending pictures of himself and what he claimed was his Ferrari. The detective pulled out specific messages in a bid to jog Kline's memory, including one where he asked, "Is it bad that I'm super into you?" According to the detective, Schatz had messaged with Libby during the sleepover she had with Abby, ahead of their final day. In fact, he was one of the last people she communicated with on the morning she and her friend went missing. Now investigators told Kline they did not believe that he was the only one who messaged Libby under the guise of Schatz. According to the detective in the transcripts, on February 13th, 8 o'clock in the morning, 2 separate devices, log in, log out, log in, log out, all within minutes of each other, to the same Anthony Schatz Snapchat account. Detective then drew Kline's attention to subsequent messages exchanged between the Anthony Schatz account and a friend of Libby's. The conversation began with the friend asking Schatz if he had heard about Libby and Abby. Schatz responded, "OMG, what happened?" Then stated, "Yeah, we were supposed to meet, but she never showed up." Kline reacted violently to this information, claiming that he had never sent any such message, describing this as a effing lie, accusing the detective of implying he murdered the girls. So this is the part where I get confused because yes, he was one of the last people to be messaging her through her phone. And yes, they were messaging the night prior to their deaths because it was at a sleepover. But this is the part where it's like, I think people report it as fact. And I'm asking you guys, like, so can we say that that's fact, or was it just a tactic the cop was using? And that's the one where the cop says that there's a message from Anthony Schatz allegedly being used by Keegan Kline where he says, OMGs, we were supposed to meet up, but she never showed. So is that true? Is there a message stating that he was supposed to meet the girls for sure? Or was the cop just saying that and then Keegan Klein says, you're a liar, whatever? That's the part where I'm confused about. I think that that's very likely Bex. She said, I think there was a P ring involved, too many sketchy things. That was my theory a while ago, like when we looked through it. Now I'm just feeling like I can't just get set on that theory. I want to keep different avenues open because it's all over the place. Because where does this crime scene cult vibe come from, you know? Or was it used by multiple people? That is what he's claiming. Keegan Klein is claiming. So hold on, let me just rewind it a little bit and hear a little bit more about Keegan speaking with that officer. He had never sent, she never showed up. Libby and Abby. Schatz responded, OMG, what happened? Then stated, yeah, we were supposed to meet, but she never showed up. Klein reacted violently to this information, claiming that he had never sent any such message, describing this as a effing lie, accusing the detective of implying he murdered the girls. Detective responded, I can honestly sit here and I'm telling you, I do not believe that you killed Libby or Abby, but you need to tell me who was logging into these accounts. Across the course of the interview, the detective asked Klein who had access to Anthony Schott's accounts dozens of times, and Klein repeatedly claimed not to remember details, not to know, or that he was the only one with the access. The detective drilled down, so you're the one that talked to her all weekend and you're one of the last people to talk to her before she was murdered? That's what you're telling me. So you were trying to get nude images from Liberty? Klein responded that he was trying to do that with all the girls he messaged. Detective bit back. The other ones are not dead. She's dead. It is quickly apparent that neither the detective nor the other deputy believed Klein's assertions that he sent all the message attributed to the Schatz account across the last week of Libby's life. Instead, they theorized that he had established the persona to groom her and then allow another man to enter the scene. The detective stated, so now we're worried about grooming. We have a guy that has troves of child pee on his devices. We have Libby being groomed, and unfortunately she was completely enthralled with Anthony Schatz, like she is completely in love with Anthony Schatz. The detective pointed out that when Klein claimed to have stopped messaging with Libby 2 weeks before her death, his polygraph test shows he was being truthful. He said the day you had your polygraph, you were steadfast, you never came off. I never spoke to Libby beyond February 1st or 2nd. Look, we know you spoke to her the day she was murdered. You said absolutely not. I blocked her. She was annoying me after the 1st or 2nd, right? But we have these grooming pictures. We have the messages with my daddy references. Regardless of what you say, there are two different authors. They're not you. The phrasing's different. It changes. It's not the same person. Investigators also noted that all of Klein's multiple devices had their histories intact when they were seized, except for the one containing Libby's conversations with Schatz. Detective laid it out. So during the time frame where this grooming would have been built up to a meeting, the history is gone. It's wiped from your phone. So now it all starts to stack. The complexity of your Anthony Schatz persona, the cars, the influence of Lamborghinis, Ferraris. It's not you. It's not your idea. You and I both know it's not your idea, the complexity of it, okay? It's not just you. Under mounting pressure, Klein told officers, I swear I don't know anything. To which the detective responded, yes, you do, man. Deputy Clinton interjected, I can't wrap my head around why you're willing to put all of this on you. Why are you protecting somebody else? Clearly rattled, Klein asked, you think I know who killed them? Detective replied, absolutely. He continued, I just don't understand why you're protecting the person. Was it as simply as that Libby just said, hey, I'm going to the high bridge, And you told somebody? Ultimately, the interview ended with Klein maintaining that he didn't know anything about what happened to the girls. Before leaving the room, the detective told Klein, "You need to sit here and you need to start remembering more because this is important." So, what do you guys think about the Keegan Klein aspect? Um, is it possible that he wasn't the one who was using Anthony's shots the night prior to the deaths, or even the day of? If there are messages from the day of about meeting up, is there multiple people under that account? Shay says, "I don't know." Literally. Yeah, let me just switch my screen up. Moving on. I just want to keep all that kind of fresh in our brain since we needed to go over um, the Keegan Klein stuff because we can't ignore it completely. I think right now I'm going to pull up a timeline real quick. Okay, so this is all stuff that's been, we've seen this photo from the Snapchat, but I think that it's important to kind of comb through the basics too. So the Snapchat is at 2:07, walking on the bridge. So on Monday, late afternoon, sheriff said crews began canvassing the area and tried pinging the girls' cell phones into the evening hours, but no success in finding them. Now, we had heard that family tried to call them and they weren't answering. So this pinging of the phone is interesting because if they were laying out in Ron Logan's yard this whole time, or on his property rather, I'm just confused at, it says the sheriff said they believed the girls' phones were either dead or turned off. So there we have somebody possibly turning off their phones, and so they were wearing gloves, like there's no fingerprints on the phones, you know what I mean? Search resumes after calling off the search around midnight. Search teams resume searching for Abby and Libby. Volunteers join police officers and firefighters searching the area around Deer Creek. And we see that there's a dog here, and this is Tuesday morning, the 14th. So they had dogs out there too, and they're pinging their phones somehow. How is the dog, I don't understand, not smelling? Is it just a tracking dog? Is that dog specific for cadavers? I'm just very curious at that image there and what was going on in the dog aspect. Because I feel like it's important to know if that was a tracking dog or a cadaver dog, because you would think in the morning they would be able to smell them, if it's a cadaver dog. So 2 bodies found along Deer Creek. Indiana State Police, Kim Riley, Carroll County Sheriff, and Delphi Police Chief hold a press conference to announce 2 bodies were found while crews were searching for Libby and Abby. These bodies were not identified as the girls, but search efforts were officially scaled back. So this is where they, officially announce the identities. Bodies found along Deer Creek identified. I don't want to play this whole thing, but I do want to play a little bit of this kind of press conference here. It's not the first press conference. It is just kind of releasing information that they know the identity. So give me a second to kind of skip ahead.
I needed one. I gave out too many. Don't litter. I don't want the rest of them. Okay. Basically, we have identified the bodies of the two females that were found out yesterday. The bodies have been positively identified as Abigail J. Williams, 13, of the Delphi area, and Liberty Rose Lynn German, 14, of the Delphi area. The two girls were reported missing on Monday, February 13th. The bodies were discovered about 12:15 on the 14th in the woods just east of town here by volunteers that helped in the search of the children after they were reported missing to the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. Family has been notified. This is considered a double homicide investigation. No further information will be released at this time. We are asking for anyone to come forward who has information that were either on the Delphi Historic Trail yet there on Monday, especially if they were near the Monon High Bridge, that they might have been seeing somebody out there. They may have taken pictures where somebody might be in that photograph. If they were out there doing that kind of stuff, we need that information. We would love to have pictures of that, just to clarify what we got going on out there. You can contact the Carroll County Sheriff's Department or the Delphi Police Department, both at the same number, 765-564-2413, or you can contact the Indiana State Police, who's assisting, at 765-567-2125. The families and all law enforcement would like to thank all those who volunteered their time assisting and helping in the search for the two girls. Without their help, it may have taken longer to locate and find the young ladies. Is there any questions out there?
Is there a threat to anybody else in the community?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is there a threat to anybody else in the community?
I'll let you answer that.
At this time, we do not believe so, sir.
Does that mean you have a person of interest in custody or a suspect?
We do not, sir.
Can you tell us?
So no suspect in custody or named, and they don't believe that there's a threat to the community.
The cause, the manner of death that the autopsy unfolded?
No, we cannot do that at this time because of the investigation is still in its baby steps, so to speak, and we don't want to put that information out yet.
Can you describe for us the scope of the investigation, the resources, the people, what's going on with the investigation?
The Carroll County Sheriff's Department is the lead investigation. They've asked us to help. The Delphi Police Department is assisting. We have the FBI, what's called their ERT team, which is the evidence collection team that is here. And they're also providing other resources at this time. We have not put all of it together yet.
In the experience that the two of you have, the scope and size of this investigation, how does this investigation rank in all the others you have witnessed or participated in?
Well, both of us came on about the same time. We started in '86 with the Sheriff's Department. I started in '86 with the State Police. And this is one of the larger ones that I've been involved in myself. I'm not saying there hasn't been larger ones the department has done, but we are using resources from all the way from Lowell, Fort Wayne, and the southern part of the state's police, state troopers, to help in solving this crime.
How confident are you that you're going to track down whoever committed this crime?
We will stay on the job until it is done.
When was the last homicide in Carroll County?
Sure. Honestly, can't recall, Ron, but we've obviously had them, so can't recall off the top of my head.
So two things. One, the sheriff doesn't know when the last homicide was, but it's been, he can't recall. So it's almost like the Idaho 4 case where it's a community that just doesn't see this type of violence often. So looking back and knowing how long it took to arrest Richard Allen, and just knowing, maybe we kind of have to admit that this agency, the sheriff's office, just wasn't equipped for this type of murder, even with the help of FBI. They mentioned that this special FBI unit specializes in evidence collection and crime scene. And all I could think about is the defense documents claiming that they went back days later looking for those sticks after the bodies were retrieved and brought to the morgue. And they weren't able to collect the sticks from the scene. So I'm just confused, like, who misplaced the sticks? Was it, the feds, or was it the local sheriff's office?
If you can't say how the girls were killed, can you say whether they were killed at the spot they were found or at a different location?
We're not, at this point in time, I don't even want to mention that either.
Can you talk about who was able to find the bodies? I know we had heard some different things, maybe some of the search members, or was it law enforcement that was able to find the bodies?
It was originally the search members. We did have police officers were involved in the search, but it originally was volunteers that found the bodies.
I saw a lot of police and fire personnel at that scene today. Can you tell us what they were doing there exactly?
They're still collecting evidence at the scene. The FBI's team is still out there, plus our Indiana State Police crime scene investigators are also at the scene. And that probably will go on the rest of the day.
Sheriff, a little bit earlier, you answered the question. You're pretty far away from the microphone here.
Yes.
Should people in this community be concerned about someone running around targeting kids?
My response is no. I feel safe for this community. Whether or not folks should be alert and watchful, that's a true statement, a fair statement. But we always encourage that folks always do that.
So if that was, my sheriff and he was asked, the confidence and feeling safe around there, I feel like there was a lot of nervous laughter. I know people in chat are mentioning them laughing before this was taking place. I think a lot of it is just nerves, and I think that they're in way over their heads and not willing to kind of like admit it at this point. I even though they're listing off all the help they're getting, I feel like maybe their heads are spinning.
Do you think this was a random act, or?
We're not going to comment on that at this time.
Whether or not people should be concerned, is it the case that there is a killer on the loose somewhere right now, or killers?
I would have to say yes. I mean, we have nobody in custody at this time. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, there is somebody out there that did this horrendous crime, and we're going to track them down.
Based on the evidence that you have, do you have any idea if you're looking for one or multiple people?
I'm not going to comment at this time on that.
Can you explain, we're getting so many questions from viewers and readers. Can you explain the reasons for not stating the cause and manner of death? I know it's to protect the investigation, but can you talk about how guarding that information protects an investigation?
You want to comment on that?
Sure. Obviously, as you well know, that some of that information could be key in a prosecution. And so I feel like that information at this current time needs to be protected so that we make sure that the case is properly handled when the time comes for criminal prosecution.
Hundreds of tips coming in from all over the place. Have family members been able to help you guys too with some information that can help in this investigation?
We have talked to the family members, but as far as information, I cannot say one way or the other.
Has the Delphi area ever had a double homicide or a child homicide?
Not neither that I can recall.
Sheriff, given nobody's in.
So this sheriff can't recall and pretty much saying like, no, they've never experienced a double homicide before this. So just noteworthy, we know it took 5 years before they even arrested Richard Allen. And hello, Era. And somebody asked about Richard Allen going to law enforcement, or did law enforcement go to him? Richard Allen willingly, I believe, called the tip line and said, I was at the trail or whatever. And chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure. And yeah, so that they've never experienced a murder on this capacity or level. And the sheriff is openly admitting that here. So just keep that in mind. It's just noteworthy things as we're going back over stuff. And it is starting to make a lot of sense.
Custody, are you going to be doing anything different from a law enforcement side in terms of staffing, trails, increasing patrols anywhere, anything different than you wouldn't have done before Monday?
We will, I believe, be more vengeful, and or I should say vengeful, but mindful of a lot of the trail system is within the city of Delphi and part of their property. And so we will assist the city police with any additional law enforcement that they need. We will always be and always invite folks to contact us with any suspicious activity that they may observe or anything that just does not look right. We always encourage that.
Is everything involving the autopsy complete, or are there still toxicology results yet to come back?
There's still, the toxicology reports are yet to come. I mean, that takes anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. The initial, I believe the initial on the 2 girls is done or just about completed.
Can you comment on any kind of injuries that the girls might have suffered?
No, I'm not going to comment on that. Anything else?
Do you see the short timeline of where the girls were dropped off?
I am not familiar with the trail system, so I can't really say. Are you?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
She was wanting to know if where the girls were dropped off and where they were supposed to be picked up. Is that information?
That information is yet developing.
What about the time of death? Are we able to tell that at all?
That has not been advised of us at this point in time, and I'm not sure if we're going to be able to release that or not. But we have not been advised of that yet.
You mentioned that the Amber Alert wouldn't help though because the time frame is pretty short, right?
Correct. And the situation of the whole thing, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with Amber Alert. I think it's a great thing. It's just at this point in time, I don't think it would have helped as much as what we would like to do.
So they can't say a time of death, but he's basically saying the Amber Alert, by the time it would have gone out, it seems as though they're alluding to the crime would have already taken place and the Amber Alert wouldn't have done much. But again, we want to know the actual time of death, especially since FBI records are saying in the Ron Logan search warrant that the bodies were moved and staged. And here we've seen in this timeline that they stated that they were pinging and calling their phones, and they believed that the phones either were out of battery or somebody had turned them off. So, who exactly turned them off, and why did they get rid of only one of the phones and the other phone was found under one of the bodies at the scene? If you're going to go through the extent and effort to, turn the phones off so nobody could get a hold of them, why would they have kept it and put it underneath one of the bodies? That's what I'm confused about. And thank you, Shane. He said Richard Allen went to the conservation officer and their combo was, quote, lost.
Have you gotten any clues at all as to why someone would want to kill these 2 girls?
I couldn't comment on any. Go ahead.
Were they found in the water or were they on the trail?
I think yesterday I made a remark that they were near the water. It was about 50 feet off the shoreline.
There, and we talked about it in the last live stream. There were some reports that were saying found in Deer Creek, and people were wondering, is that literal, or does that mean that they're just referring to the area? And then in other reports, we found out in the early ones that they stated something along the lines of offshore. And now he is admitting that he was misstating things and that they were found 50 feet away. So it's already, this is again, I seen Era, you asked what date this was. This is Wednesday. So the crimes take place, what, Monday? Let me just pull this up or move it over so you can. Okay, so yeah, the 15th. Sorry. Yeah, Wednesday. So that was the date for that. So already by Wednesday, they're needing to correct some information. And yes, it's good that they correct it, but at the same time, stuff has already spread. Someone said that the perp may have had it, but fell out while moving Libby. Ah, the phone. Gotcha. Maybe in a hasty hurry. But at the same time, it's like if they're in such a hurry and they end up dropping the phone, like why did they stage the crime scene like that and like dress one of the girls? And did she dress herself before? But at the same time, it couldn't have been her herself. There was no blood on the clothing. So I'm just all confused about the crime scene.
So I was off on that. I hadn't been to the scene yet. I was going with the information I'd received. So they were about. I was looking from a distance, but I'm going to say it was between 50 and 60 feet off the shoreline.
So let me ask you, were they dry or were they?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Can you describe the terrain where they were found, whether it was accessible by vehicle or would have to be on foot?
I mean, yeah, they were. The only way you could really get back in there is either a horse or a walk. I mean, it's very hilly back in that area.
Should people avoid those trails right now?
It actually was not even on the trail itself. It was on private property.
Should people be avoiding the trails?
I'm not going to say one way or the other. Again, people just have to realize that this has occurred and to be mindful and watch what's going on around you.
Sheriff, have you ever had to respond? I know it was on private property, but in that area in general, have you ever had disturbances back there? Some neighbors said a lot of teens hung out back there. There was maybe parties thrown in that wooded area. Have you ever had to go back there before other investigations?
Not any routine or regular calls, no.
Sheriff, this is such a small town. Is it concerning to you to see the shockwave that's sent through the community here?
It is disturbing. It is concerning as sheriff in my position. And, I want to, I guess, assure the community, as Trooper Riley indicated, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We feel confident. And, we're going to do everything we can within our resources to reach justice in this situation.
This is obviously an area where kids are hanging out. Anyone can be hanging out in the trail system. What's your message to those who may be going on there this weekend? It's supposed to be 70 degrees. Is there concern that if there's someone out there killing people, that there could be more of this going on too?
Again, I refer back to what I said earlier, and folks just simply being, I don't want to discourage anyone from using the system. And as far as the trail system, it's there for a purpose, for recreation. And so I feel that folks should continue with business as usual, but be more mindful and watch their surroundings, the environment a little closer. And again, report anything that doesn't look right or looks unordinary to us, and so that we can follow into it.
Sorry if this was asked before, but do you believe you're looking for a single suspect or possible multiple?
We're still looking into that.
Without saying the cause of death.
So when asked if it's a single suspect or multiple, he says we're still looking into that. So they're not saying no, single, and they're not saying yes, multiple. So sometimes it's all about what they don't tell us. And, this one you could kind of interpret as, did they feel like it was more? Because people have rumored that Guys Down the Hill is two different voices. People have said that those voices aren't even connected to the bridge guy image that we're seeing. It's just all over the place. So Era says they haven't ruled it out. It sounds like everything's just so fresh at this point too. Think about it. First week. They're probably about to get like the experts to go in with the voice recognition and all that, and they have a profile of what they think that voice is. Like I feel like it's somebody older than 40. What do you guys think? Like if you could put an age on the voice and like for me it sounds definitely older than 35, but I'm thinking it's like somebody like 50 and up personally.
Can you say whether the girls were killed in the same way?
I'm not going to reply to that either. Anything else?
When will there be another update?
As soon as something happens, right now, this is probably going to be all that's going to be put out, unless something breaks or we get some information that we need help from you guys and gals. There's really not much else we can report at this point in time. So, if we do have something, we definitely will notify you, and we'll give you guys a heads up to let you know when the information will be released.
Sheriff, this is the second time now in about 4 months where your county is grieving the loss of kids. So what can you say to the county right now, or the residents of Delphi, to just assure them that
Right. We pride ourselves. I guess I'll start out. I mean, obviously, we do have our share of, as the old saying is, the big city issues. As we all know, society has changed greatly, and obviously, in some areas, not for the best. And so, if I just again refer back to that, we are here for a purpose and keeping our community safe. And I'd still like to think that our county is one of the safest in the state. And we will do everything we can to continue with that. And, what's happened in the last few months is obviously very unfortunate, but the thing I draw from is the community support from everybody. Obviously, you all witnessed it yesterday with the volunteers that came out and came forward and said, how can we help? That's, to me, that shows a strong community, a strong faith in what we have here. And so we move forward with that attitude.
Now we know based on the pictures, at least one of them was on their cell phone, given they had uploaded the picture to social media. Did you recover either of their cell phones at the scene?
We cannot comment on that right now.
So they don't want to comment about the fact that they found one of the phones in between the girls. So obviously they wanted to keep that close to their vest. And actually, I believe that information leaked out. That wasn't anything that law enforcement like willingly gave the public. So interesting, that again, everyone in chat is saying it seems like they're in over their heads. Let me see how this ends. There's more that in this timeline.
I want to thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Sorry, yes, you had a question?
Can you tell us about talking to the family today? Then I imagine you had a discussion with them today. What you talking about yesterday?
That's a decision that the family has to make if they want to talk to you or not. I'm not.
No, I'm saying when you talk to them.
Oh, when we talk to them, okay.
This information.
I think they were in pretty much belief that it was their children. But when you hear it from an official, it's still a little still it hits home twice, I guess is the way I would put it. Is that about right?
Yep.
I guess it's bad enough to hear it once, and then you got to hear it again. As a parent, I know. All right. Did everybody get a copy of this? If you wanted it?
All right. So this is just a small little portion of this timeline that we can go through and we'll be combing back through. I don't want to spend too much time just on this part, but I did think that that was important to see. What I want to do now is play, this is prior to the arrest of Richard Allen. Just go back to a court TV segment. We'll finish it off with that, and then we can comb back through a lot of this other stuff that I have to share with you guys in a future episode because this case, like I said, we're recombing over things and looking at things from a different perspective. So that's what we'll be doing here and there. And I am still covering other cases as well, like Ruby Frankie. I'm waiting for updates. Brian Koberger, waiting for updates. Let me see. Okay, yeah, this was 2 years ago. And it was a segment that they were doing that is like specific to unsolved kind of cases. So I want to just go back and revisit what things were being said. This again isn't 2017 like everything else we've been looking at tonight, but it is their take of looking back at 2017 a couple years ago. So I think it'll be good to kind of watch together and react. And thank you all for being here. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so. And we'll just finish this with Court TV. And then again, I'll be live Tuesday night on either this case or one of the other ones. Instead of fighting or not knowing what they were doing, why didn't they ask for FBI assistance in the case and learn from FBI on cases like this, on tough cases like this? I can't answer that. I just feel like FBI's opinion of what route to take was different than maybe the sheriff's opinion of like the suspect or route to take or method. And then there's also the miscommunication. Somehow Richard Allen's tip is being lost in all this. They're looking at more than one catfish account. Like there's more than Keegan Klein that they were looking into that was also messaging the girls that were catfishing them. So it's absolutely crazy. And there's just so much too that I want to go through with tips from just what web sleuths have come together and found in the first year of the case too, which there'll be a lot of speculation and rumors, but to look back, I want to know where everyone's head was at too. So Scottish Queen, who's very well versed in this case, says Abby never had a phone that her mother was aware of. So the only phone they had was Libby's, but I know Abby was caught having Facebook account and her mom didn't know how. So maybe she had a secret one. It seems like some of the reports have stated that she had a phone that day or they were calling both phones or something. So thank you, Pizza Chemist, for being here and gifting memberships. I really appreciate that. And you swinging in and saying hello to everybody. I don't know. I'm confused on the phone aspect too, but it is interesting that there are rumors of her having her own phone, like secretly, just to kind of add another layer to all things, right?
I'm Vinny Politan. Thanks so much for joining us. And we begin this hour with a brand new segment that we are premiering tonight, the Unsolved Case File. Every night, 9 o'clock, we'll be taking a look at a case that has remained unsolved, putting out some clues, shining a light on it. So hopefully it will lead to something for investigators. And tonight,
I just want to comment quick on Johnny's comment. He said, I think it is bigger than what police might have thought, maybe. And think about the defense's documents that they put out and stated that there were 3 detectives who were, very seasoned detectives that felt that this Odinist route and this cult aspect of the crime scene was legitimate and it had more weight and everything than the Richard Allen narrative and avenue. So to say that maybe it was bigger than what police thought, like I think that could be accurate for sure. And maybe the cult aspect was too much for them to kind of think that it was believable or that could happen. Or maybe they didn't feel that 12 jurors would go on board for that. I don't know.
Tonight's story is one you may be familiar with. It's out of Indiana. Back in 2017, two young teenagers named Libby and Abby were murdered near the Monon High Bridge in Indiana. It's a case that has some real clues, real suspects, images from a cell phone, but still today remains unsolved. Our great affiliate, WRTV in Indianapolis, has more for us tonight.
We also believe this person is from Delphi.
So there's a clip of Doug Carter stating that they believe the suspect is from Delphi. K-Braze, I'm not sure about an evidence list that we have available from the beginning. We have like evidence lists from Richard Allen's search warrant and stuff, but which I think I shared on the last stream, but I can clip it in next time too, so we can go over it again. But you did remind me of a question that I had in regards to something I wanted to ask Scottish Queen, but now I'm like trying to remember. Hold on.
Currently, or has previously lived here.
Carrie Timmons did not need to say a word for the world to be reminded of the deep loss being felt by the families of Libby German and Abby Williams. Raw emotions as new details became public within 2 years after the girls were killed.
The courage of Libby German to use her cell phone to record this man on the old Monon High Bridge is credited with giving police one of the best tips in the ongoing investigation. Libby and her good friend Abby Williams were on the historic trail on February 13, 2017, before they were found dead.
Okay, now I remember what I wanted to ask chat and Scottish Queen if she's listening. And thank you for becoming a new member, Villainous Cupcake. And I like your little emoji. It's perfect for Halloween or all the time, goth. But anyways, the clothing and the shoe that was found in the river, guys, did that have blood on it? Like, I didn't see any when I looked at the photos. But I'm just curious if any of you guys know through the grapevine or have been following this case for a while, the tie-dye shirt and the Nike shoes and the socks, did any of that have blood on it? Does anyone know? Because we know that some of the clothing, I think socks and underwear was missing from the scene, and Abby was wearing Libby's clothes at the scene, and that didn't have blood or dirt on it. But the ones that were found in the river, because a lot of people are speculating that they think that some of this crime took place possibly in the river itself. So Shane says he couldn't tell. I couldn't tell. Johnny says, I see no blood at all in the river photos. So I'm just having a very hard time. Like, how is there no DNA on the clothing that was dressed for Abby in Libby's clothes? How is there no touch DNA on any of that? And how did this crime take place if the clothing, if they were nude, obviously?
A day later, the video and sketch of the suspect have circulated around the world.
State police also shared a bit more of the audio from that video. In the past, we've heard the 3 words, down the hill. Now listen closely to the new release.
As the day comes, I just feel more hopeful that we'll get to an arrest and that in the end we'll get a conclusion no matter how long that's going to take.
Now technology from the app known as Crime Door is using Libby's video and public documents to put you on that bridge.
Detail and accuracy are our most important. And so in the case of a augmented reality experience, we won't make it unless we have photos of the location. Yeah.
That's a good question. Crime Sleuth then says, I wonder if any possible touch DNA was left behind on all those sticks they left. So we know that they went back a couple days later to collect the sticks, couldn't find them. So does that mean that the perpetrator went back to the crime scene and took things and like hid them? Or does that mean that cops literally just misplaced them? Or, like where exactly do these specifically cut and laid out sticks end up? And you would think that this person is in such a hurry, like doing this crime, that there would definitely be like sweat type of touch DNA on those sticks, you would think, So it's like another fumble by law enforcement, or
in detail.
On the left, Libby's video. On the right, the recreation of the historic landmark through augmented reality. The virtual video lets you get a 3D view of the area. The app's creators are hoping the visual experience will jog someone's memory and lead to that missing tip.
And actually, for the first time, and this is the key word, understand a case. And by being able to be there, go essentially through a time machine, you can understand something. And so we think the community is going to really rally around this.
The site also includes news stories from WRTV and other organizations documenting this ongoing case.
This is potentially a technology that can be leveraged by law enforcement.
Cold case detective Paul Holes played a key role in finding the Golden State Killer, who had evaded police for 4 decades. He believes augmented reality is another helpful tool for the public and police.
Demonstrating, this railroad bridge where this offender met up with Libby and Abby, that's going to either tickle an investigator's brain about maybe there's a different approach to try to identify this guy.
The guy that police want to find. The guy that for 4 years has sparked global interest.
All right, if you have any information, please call the Delphi Homicide Tip Line. This is a tip line just for this case, 844-459-5786. They also have an email address, if you'd rather do that, Abby and Libby Tip at CACOSHRF.com. All right, today, the Indiana State Police released a statement as we get closer to the 4-year anniversary of this horrific crime. Here's what they said in their statement today. On February 13th, 2017, Abigail Williams and Liberty German went missing while walking on a trail near the Monon High Bridge in the town of Delphi, Indiana. On February 14th, 2017, their bodies were discovered. The Carroll County Sheriff Department, assisted by the Indiana State Police, Delphi Police Department, and other law enforcement agencies, continue to work diligently to bring this case to a close. And that means it is still unsolved tonight. Joining me, retired crime lab director for the San Diego Police Department, Jennifer.
Obviously, like I had stated, this is an older report from 2 years ago. But Johnny, you bring up a good point, which I've like discussed in other chats this week, like criminality and stuff, covering the case too. He said one theory I had was someone or one of the searchers that night might have found them and made it look like that staging. Maybe there was searchers that was not police out there that night. And I think, unfortunately, that theory that you have is something that's like run through my mind too, because who were these searchers? They're coming out years later saying we believe that this perpetrator's from Delphi. So if there were searchers, and they trampled through the crime scene, or maybe they did like stumble on it and for whatever reason didn't tell law enforcement first, and then they stage it some themselves, or, unfortunately, all that reasonable doubt could be put in the juror's mind of like, okay, yeah, so who did kind of trample the crime scene, or who did find them, and who is this person connected to, or does that person know them personally, like these searchers? And the searcher, who we assume is the searcher who found the clothing in the river, that took pictures and then sent it to sources anonymously. It's like, why did they do that? And it's stated that they'd found or took those photos before law enforcement even collected the bodies or found them. So it's just a lot of weird things going on at the crime scene before law enforcement even got there. And obviously the searchers helped in locating them sooner. But at the same time, I feel like we need to know everything about, who discovered them, and I think the jurors might want to know a little bit more too about, who was at the crime scene or in or around the crime scene. That's just my opinion. But again, we're looking at this stuff so deeply because we've been following it for so long. The jury, we're probably going to have to assume that they don't know much about the case. So maybe, they won't be thinking this way, like, how many people were at the crime scene or whatever. But again, if I was the defense, maybe I'd be wondering, or, like, we need to know more about how many people you had at the crime scene tampering with things. Why weren't things collected that should have been collected? All that just doesn't look good for the prosecution, unfortunately. And if Richard Allen is connected to this, like, we need 12 jurors to think so and to think that this wasn't fumbled. And hello, Princess Megan, Elsa, good to see you.
Jen is with us tonight. Jennifer, great to see you.
Hi.
First question I have for you. Are you surprised? Here we are getting close to 4 years with some of the clues that have been made public that this case is still unsolved.
I really am surprised. When I study this case, it's just so rare that you actually have video of the suspect, not only video, but also voice. And, the video isn't really clear, but it's clear enough that you could recognize maybe the clothing, the mannerisms, the walk.
Now, last live stream, we pulled up an article from the week of the murders, and they released the image of Bridge Guy, and it said something along the lines of, like, not a suspect, they just want to speak to this guy or whatever. So already, I want to know, like, when was Bridge Guy really named a suspect? We haven't really, like, nailed that exact date yet. I just want to know, like, when. I don't know. Because that one FBI profiler who was retired basically said that he wished that law enforcement put out information sooner. So I'm wondering if naming him as, like, not a suspect, they just wanted to talk to him. Like, I don't know. I just wonder where in their methods maybe did they go wrong.
And there's just like kind of, you would get a feeling for that person if you knew them. So it's really surprising to me that they don't know who this is.
All right, Jennifer, let's start with the scene and where all this took place. And she was dropped off. The two girls were dropped off, again, ages 14 and 13, at the Delphi Historic Trails near Monon High Bridge. This is at 1 o'clock on February 13th, 2017. Let's take a look at that image if we could. This is where they are dropped off in Delphi, and then they are found half a mile away east of the bridge, about 50 feet from Deer Creek. This is a wooded area. It's close to the water, but not in the water. Trees, leaves, everything you would expect to find, and I'm sure tons of wildlife as well. Start here, half a mile from that bridge. How do you think they could have gotten from the Monon High Bridge to where their remains were found?
Well, they likely walked, and it sounds like just from the video that we have of the suspect that that's what they did. And it's really interesting to me because a crime scene like that, with you don't fly into crime scenes usually. There you have to get in, you have to get out. So there's so much evidence that could be available at a crime scene like that, to include tire tracks, shoe prints, bike tracks, the tracks of the girls. They should be able to identify how they got in and how how whoever got in there and did this got into that scene as well.
Let me ask you, Jennifer, because we see the image of the man walking. That is the suspect, right? We know that they were on the bridge at the same time because that's when they took the video. We know where the two girls ended up. Are you trying to track the path that was taken? Is that part of the crime scene investigation here?
Absolutely, because the crime scene is not just where the bodies were found, but it's all the points of entering into the crime scene and the points exiting the crime scene of the suspect, him or herself. So you're looking to find how the girls got there, because all along the path of their entry into that crime scene, there could be clues. There could be something that was dropped. There could be, again, shoe prints, tire tracks. There could be dropped cigarette butts. There could be blood. There could be anything along the path going into and out of that scene. So it would be really important to figure out how they got from the bridge to where their bodies were found.
The timing here, it's less than 24 hours from the time they were dropped off at the bridge to when their remains were discovered. Tell me how that impacts the scene and what evidence you would expect to find where these two young girls were found.
Well, interestingly, 24 hours isn't that long. And because there wasn't any significant weather event, I understand it was very cold, but there wasn't a significant weather event. And that is not that long for the wildlife to find the bodies. So there should be a lot of evidence. There should be evidence on the bodies themselves in the surrounding area. And it was wooded and kind of a little more protected from the elements. So you would expect that there would be a lot of evidence.
And yet we have Richard Allen's defense saying that there's nothing tying him to the scene. Jeff says, sure seems like Richard Allen's wife would have seen that bridge guy video and said, oh my gosh. Yeah, we said that earlier in chat, and as well as his parents. You know, like, how did nobody think that that video was Richard Allen or that voice was Richard Allen's? I don't know. So I think we're going to stop there for tonight. There's just too much to go through, and I want to be able to kind of do it where I'm not rushing. So I don't know, maybe we'll do it Tuesday. I'm waiting to see when the next Ruby Frankie Hulu episode comes out to review it for you guys, because there was a lot of people who said that they don't have Hulu. So it hasn't come out yet. So I'm just juggling this as well as my Idaho 4 series that I'm doing, where I raise my biggest questions and we just kind of sit here for like around an hour or so and just discuss like our biggest questions in that case while we wait for that trial date and all that. So thank you guys so much for being here. Everyone who donated, thank you so much. And thank you to all my moderators and my members and everyone who was gifted a membership and who gifted the memberships. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's never ending with this case. And I'm just happy to go back through and kind of comb things over. Now, we only got to the 15th. So we're kind of just going a little bit a snail's pace, one day at a time, almost type of rehash of everything. So with a fresh look and a fresh opinions, again, I'm not settled on anything with this case. I feel like everything's just been uprooted for me in what I think is going on in it. So we're just rehashing it. Oh, thank you, Pizza Chemist. Gifted 5 more memberships. Welcome to the members. And thank you, Pizza Chemist and everyone else. And we'll talk very soon, guys. So thank you so much.